Hello, friends, family, and keepers of the faith, to another Del Boy blog. This one is dated year 2, blog 40, or if you're into the legacy numbers, blog 92, and it's dated 26th of November 2023. And it's been a strange week. Yeah, very strange week. Quite enjoyable. Not too many disasters, a couple of bad feelings and irksome problems that you get, from time to time. But, overall, I got a lot done. And from that point of view, that's great. I still miss collaboration. It's all very good when you're doing stuff on YouTube for yourself, and doing it all on your own. I've always liked to be part of a gang, getting other people's opinions, talking about your hobby that you enjoy. But in that retrospect, it's very hit and miss whether you're going to be allowed to do that, or whether you're offered to do that. So from that point of view, it's sad. From another point of view, I concentrate on me. I concentrate on my mum. I concentrate on the people that mean the most to me. And if I feel like I need to do something, it pushes me, because there is not that push to do something with someone. Like I say, it's the one thing that's probably missing from my arsenal, is that I know that I can get up and do whatever I want. But doing something for someone, or doing something with someone, yeah, miss that. But saying that, I did do something with someone this week. My good friend Denny. We decided to do a live stream yesterday after a big event. A big event to some, not a lot to others. A 60th anniversary of a TV show called Doctor Who, which some people will now have given up on, regardless of how much quality or money goes into it, and that's fair enough. If you've given it time, then basically you have what they call a jumping on and a jumping off point, and some people had that jumping off point a long time back. From my point of view, nostalgia comes into an awful lot of it. Give things the benefit of the doubt. Watch it, don't watch it. I will say that the one thing that I've lost with Doctor Who is my urgency to watch it, rather than not wanting to watch it, because I can watch it on catch up. I can wait until all the episodes are broadcast and then watch it in one big lump. Whatever. The time has gone, probably for a lot of people, in regards to sitting down with family and watching something. And this is where I've turned around and said a number of times, it's probably not written or produced for me anymore. And there has to be a time when that occurs. I love Bagpuss, but if they were making it today, it wouldn't be for me, would it? It would be for kiddies. And therefore the writing would be different. There's years and years and years gaps, between when the original one was enjoyed by me and the one that would be made, say, next year, if they ever decide to do one. I have to look at things like that, and therefore I relax my tongue a little bit in regards to, why have they put this in? Why have they put that in? But I don't want to go too far down a road like that. We'll talk about the things I've done later on. I hope you will spend your time having a little look. It won't be for everybody, everything I do. But I do it for you. Oh God, well, that's a song, isn't it? But no, let's carry on. We always start off, don't we, with the news, okay? And we always start off with the war because it's still going on. And the notes I've put down are Russia and Ukraine both report thwarting drone strikes. Zelensky calls for more air defences. Moscow says it shot down 20 Ukraine drones, while Kiev reports downing 8 or 9 drones launched by Russia. So this goes on with the war that I was talking about last week, where it's becoming drones. They are cheaper than a number of other weaponry. They can be quite effective, and it seems very much like massive airstrikes are going on to destroy these drones because they do carry quite a punch when used. I did say all of this last week, so there's nothing really new. But there was something that was there that basically said that there is a fierce row erupting over the 2024 election in Ukraine. All elections, including presidential ones, are prohibited under the country's martial law. People state this distracts the nation from its fight for survival. And I have to sort of agree here. We've had wars, Falkland Wars and all that sort of stuff, and they've aided politicians to go in or stay for extra terms. They're in a big war. They've got a president that is leading them, who I suppose could be ousted if he wanted to be. But to have an election, to have people having to queue up and poll and all this sort of stuff during the middle of everybody being bombed, a distraction you don't need. So that's my only opinion on that, really. Not a brilliant one. And we then lead to the only other UK big story, which was the budget. The budget was on Wednesday, or should they call it the autumn budget these days. The Chancellor cuts 2p from income tax, but cracks down on welfare payments, saying those who fail to find work in 18 months will be pushed into mandatory work placements. This is the Chancellor's push to get everybody working. Now, there was big discussions on this for a good couple of days around the budget, because there was obviously sniffs of this was going to happen. Then it actually got announced, and then there's the discussion afterwards. There was a lot of people that are on welfare for mental health issues that were concerned, or people that have got disabilities. The mental health ones definitely struck a chord with most of the callers, from what I could tell. There was one person who rang up that said their person, their son has not left his bedroom for good 10 or 12 months, scared to go out the door, basically has got a huge problem with self-esteem, getting up and leaving the house. Now, what I know is when people do these pushings, or should I say the government do these pushings, they always look at things like, how much money have you got saved up? What's your well-being around your parents or your family? And then they start stating you're okay, fit to work, and then you have to go to the doctor. And of course, what's happened now is the government has now changed the fit note. So they definitely are clamping down, because doctors now won't be issuing the fit note like it's supposed to be. It'll be a totally different type of fit note. And I dare say people are going to have to pay money to go and see private doctors to get another type of report that basically says that my son or daughter or whatever is unfit to work. And like I say, a lot of disabilities are not seen on the outside, they're inside. But I do know that there are a lot of people that claim welfare when they shouldn't, and all of this sort of stuff, and it will aid that. But from my point of view, I think it's a push too far, too strict. Too much in one go. I welcome the income tax. It will mean something to me. It will mean I'll be able to give my mother some extra money, because on top of the income tax, what's happening in the same month is that electricity and gas and bills are going up by 5%. So it wipes it off. We know that the government can't control that. Heat and electricity and so forth, it's all down to supply, and there's a war going on, and therefore where we get our energy from is affected, and we get a lot of our energy from Europe. So until we become self-sufficient, we'll have this problem. And as much as the government are putting up 100 turbine windmills or whatever it is, every 6 months, a year, whatever, the self-sufficient power problem is decades, not years, to actually address. So, of course, no good luck on the horizon, really, for us. And that's all I've got to say with that. So moving on nicely, we get to the shout-outs, and it's very nice that people have bothered to write a comment for me, wish me well. It's the only sort of way I know your feelings, your opinions, etc. Because, you know, numbers like likes and how many watches you had don't tell the story. They just mean that somebody clicked on it, looked for 5 minutes and went away, or whatever. The comments tell me everything. So for every single person that's left a comment, a big thank you to you. I'll read out the names now. These people have all left comments. There is Martroid, Colin Jones, aka Ponder, Wee Bob Art, LFC Gamer and Vlogs, Gaming Since the 70s, Seb's Place, Paul Patrick, Denny, and Ian the Ramblings. So absolutely fantastic. Thank you, all of you. I know sometimes it's very difficult to get a comment. I notice a couple of people here, Robert's Gaming and Mark's Video Games Played Badly, are not there, but at the end of the day, they're working people, and you have to understand that not everybody has got the time to take away themselves from their family to watch, you know, what could be considered mindless drivel. So, you know, I look forward to them coming back and speaking or leaving a comment, or I wish them incredibly well in what they do. That wasn't a name call out on get your stuff in, you miserable lot. I actually do mean the fact that people just have lives, and it's as simple as that. So we move on now to the comments, the actual ones that have actually left something, as I've just mentioned those names. And we start off with Paul Patrick. And he basically says, hope you've had a better week, Del, after all the health issues with yourself and your mother. Yeah, the health issues will obviously get better, you know, diminish. But it's a long, old slog. I've tended to find, you know, that as I get older, it takes me longer to get over something. Even something like the common cold can take me a number of days more than it used to be, and that's to be expected. I worry more about my mother. She's got to the point where she just says it's all about age. There's no point bothering a doctor when I'm just getting older. And I disagree, and I can disagree as much as I want, but you're not going to better your mum. At some point, my sister and I will need to sit down and talk about it in a much more serious vein than I can do with my mother, and go, we don't care what you say, you're going to be doing this. But at the moment, nothing is life-threatening that I know of. Like I say, it was a scare a couple of weeks ago. She had a horrible infection that made her giddy, that collapsed on the floor. She needed drugs and a overnight stay at the hospital to get her back. And that's all I really want to say about that, because it is women's things and I don't like talking about that. So you carry on, Paul. Thank you so much, by the way, for all the people that wish me well and wish my mother well. It really is appreciated and welcomed. The question for the blog then: did you play text adventures on the Commodore 64 and the VIC-20? Well, Paul, that's actually talked about quite a lot actually in my blogs, and something that my friend Denny knows all too well, that text adventures were an incredibly big thing for me. And I can understand why people frown upon them now, and from a nostalgia point of view also frown about them, because they were a mainstay for a long period of time. And I was one of those people that used to like books like Death Trap Dungeon and Warlock of Firetop Mountain, these sort of like books that you needed to have a story recited to you. You know, you're going down a path, it's dark, there is a single light on the right hand side, but you hear a noise. What do you do? And that's all you've got. Only in a text adventure you would type what you want to do, and in a role-playing game you would roll a dice and turn to a page and the outcome would be there. That's a chance book. But there's some outstanding adventures, and I really did like the Quest Probe series. And you've actually already mentioned that. You've mentioned there was some interesting licensed Marvel titles, Spider-Man, Hulk, from Quest Probe, that came out in the early 80s, and some movie tie-ins like Gremlins. For me, playing the Hobbit game with my family got me interested in reading the novel some years later. And that's exactly the point. You're talking about Scott Adams and Adventure International with the Quest Probe series, and I was a big Marvel fan anyway, so Spider-Man, the Hulk, and it was called the Fantastic Four, but it only involved Ben Grimm, the Thing, and the Human Torch in that story. And that had an interesting mechanic where you had to switch between the two heroes to get themselves out of danger. So that had an interesting mechanic in it. The licensed ones like Gremlins were fun. Not particularly stressful puzzle-wise. The hardship is knowing the words that the vocabulary of the game used, which is why so many people turn to games like Zork and I don't know, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Leather Goddesses of Phobos, The Pawn, those sort of games that came from much larger designers like Infocom. But they were on their end, really, their last legs, around about the time of the Amiga and Atari's popularity. So The Pawn was a big one from Magnetic Dreams, I think, Firebird. It had absolutely fantastic graphics, an interpreter that obviously had many revisions to get to that point. And it basically was gloss, and an interesting story. The problem is people move on and go, I don't want to type. I want to move a character around. I want to pick things up that I see on the screen. I don't want to be talked to by saying it's there. And so basically, I suppose the fun dies. To me, the fun will never die. Even now, you get scenarios in exams. You know, Peter's got 7 daughters, and Lucy has got 5 sisters, and they want to go out with the Partridge Family, where they've got 9 brothers, but the brothers can only go out with girls with dresses that are red in colour, yellow and blue. Which ones of the sisters does the brothers go out with? You know, nonsense scenario, but what I'm and makes no sense. But what I'm trying to get at is that's exactly the same as you're going down a corridor and it's very dimly lit, and you feel sludge under your feet. What do you do? It's basically a narrative. So I used to love them. I still play them. I still like going back and hearing interviews with some of my favourite designers like Scott Adams. I'll always follow him and see what he's doing at the moment and listen to his back tale of writing adventure games. I not desperately, but definitely advise you to look out for Denny's channel. He does adventuring. There are lots of ones out there. They're not as common and not as popular because they're not as graphically pleasing to the eye. For a stream, I mean, at the end of the day, seeing text come on the screen and watching you type what you do is not exactly entertainment. But I tell you what, I used to go round my friend's house and they were playing The Hobbit and I would watch them type in all sorts of things like take this, take the ring, open the chest, open the door. And I was just enthralled by how the graphics would then display. And even on my VIC-20, where it was just text adventures, I suppose because of my age, I just loved the adventure. It was like Pirates Cove comes to mind. The Count. Oh, the Count was great. And having my VIC-20 with a proper keyboard meant that I was learning typing skills. So basically, I was learning for the future, doing adventure games. There you go. Never wrote one myself, but hey ho, and there we go. Hope that answers that, and we'll move down to the next one. And speaking of Denny, here's Denny. So here we are. We've got an essay. I'll try and read out as much of it as possible. I do it warts and all, so I don't hold back. It's as he says it. Like him or love him. Personally, love him. Absolutely brilliant. Always nice to have somebody with a forceful mind. So he goes, hey, mate, sorry to hear about your current situation with your illness. Fluid on the lungs is no joke. I suppose I better look out for it too, seeing as I'm on 2 lots of blood pressure pills myself. So a speedy recovery, my friend. Keep bothering that doctor till he puts you right. You're also correct that you and your family comes first. You could come back to this hobby or friends when spare time permits. And you're quite right there, Denny. And I must admit, it was not the doctor sort of explained to me that water on the lungs can be caused by tablets. He implied long-term use of tablets, and my only long-term use of tablets is blood pressure tablets. So I've put 2 and 2 together that is a cause, and he probably has as well. I'm still on the tablets. I've got another 4 days to go, and then I sort of like need to go back. So we'll see. My voice seems okay, a bit raspy. I'll have a bit of a drink. A bit raspy. But I've been talking a lot since when we were talking last night. We did a stream for 2 hours, so not really surprised. Thanks for answering my question on Godzilla. Loving the new trailer for the latest from Japan, Godzilla -1. Typing this, I've just caved in and bought the Godzilla box set by Criterion. Not all have the English language soundtracks, but I'm told they are better in the original form, Japanese. Godzilla vs. King Kong is like 2 different cuts and supposedly feels different. You'll have to tell me more about that. I'd love to bite the bullet on Godzilla. It's a little bit expensive for me at the moment. Doesn't quite fit in with my collection of steelbooks, being as it's not a steelbook collection. But at the end of the day, you buy it for the film, and I may well as well bite the bullet. But I think I'm going to have to wait on Godzilla for a price drop. And if it goes out of print, well, they still call it out of print, even though it's not printing. If it goes out of pressing, then oh well, what can I do? But there are literally hundreds of cases like that in my collection where I've missed something. So it'll be an oh well moment. Wish I'd have done it. And, you know, you just look out for a re-release. So you carry on. So the 60th Doctor Who anniversary is coming up, and no doubt by now we'll have discussed last night's episode and spit out what we think of it. Russell T Davies went on to say in an interview about Davros that he's a wheelchair user who is evil himself, and his production team associating disability with evil. What planet are these idiots on who actually thinks that, firstly, it's not a wheelchair and you can be evil, whether you'll be able to be able-bodied or not? When will this nonsense stop? Yes, and you told me about that, and I was dismayed. And I didn't question that it didn't happen, but I turned around and said, it doesn't make any sense, because there are lots of evil people, and yeah, quite like you say, a lot of them are able-bodied. Davros himself was actually born a normal alien, because we have to call them aliens because they're not exactly born on Earth, human. And in an accident, destroyed both his legs and his arm, which put him then in a contraption that has wheels, which is where I think the wheelchair anecdote comes from. But it's not a wheelchair. It's a mobile unit. It's sort of like those when we see our disabled and pensioners at the moment on those little cars that go along the pathways, mobility scooters and things. It really is a device for getting him about, and it's something that he was designing at the same time as he was genetically engineering a set of creatures that would go on to be malevolent. So yeah, I hated that, and I was so surprised that they'd even announced or let something like that get published. But what can you do? It's out there in the real world. You know, it can offend, it can not offend. It can be taken in all sorts of ways. My point of view is a stupid comment. They ought to think twice about opening their gobs. In your news section, you brought up Glastonbury. Not my thing at all. I'm with Rock God. LOL. As for me, I'm a celebrity. That trash should have been cancelled years ago. Same thing year in, year out. Our government tax breaks won't do us any favours at all. Heard the fuel will be going up again over winter. What a shocker. Not. Yeah, and again, I've covered that it's going up by 5%, so there's a little bit of information there. I can't remember Rock God talking about Glastonbury, but I may have misinterpreting what you're writing there, but I do remember Glastonbury was sold out last week in under an hour. It's not my thing. I haven't been to Glastonbury since I went the first time. So I went once and I've never been since. But then again, I've been to Nebworth once and never been again since, and a number of places like that. I must admit, I don't fancy going to a festival for 3 days in a tent. Not aimed at me, but it is, if you see what I mean. There's a lot of people that like tents and going out and getting the fresh air and all of that sort of stuff. And some people will think, go on, have a go, see what it's like. You're sitting in your room all the time. What's the point in that? I'd rather save my money and go on a nice holiday, like a fly drive, in another country, than listen to music in a field. I suppose that's how I interpreted it really the most. Interesting topic on the Star Wars games. Love Dark Forces, which is now undergoing a full remaster by Night Drive. And obviously the SNES games, the Super Star Wars, etc. Unique spaceship design has to be the Liberator from Blake 7. Still looks original today. But I don't think it was unique that was being mentioned. It was weird design or, unusual design. And I thought the Liberator was just perfect, which makes it a ship that you'd want to copy and use in other science fiction. Don't think they've ever copied um, Battle Beyond the Stars ships that did look like phallic symbols. So I stick by my that's weird, those ships, and Blake 7 is just the pinnacle of ship design. We'll put it like that. You talked about Christmas and how lonely it can be for people. Well, my other half cooks for the homeless and old folks in the area on Christmas Day at her church. She gives her whole day up to look after people less fortunate. She is the meaning of what the season is about for me. And I can't not turn around and say, wow, that is the embodiment probably of Christmas. It's giving, it's helping the needy. It's not about a fat bloke coming down a chimney and giving you presents for being good during the year. You should be good every year. No. Christmas is obviously a divided subject as well. I'm not going to spark arguments. To me, Christmas can be a lonely time because it's also about family. Some families are split apart, whether it be by miles or by arguments. And as you get older, the people that you grew up with go away or die, and therefore it becomes a lonely event. I just try to make my mother as comfortable as possible. I've been trying for years to get her away from cooking the Christmas dinner by me learning to cook, like the chicken, the turkey, the joint of beef, the vegetables, etc. I've lived by myself for 7 years. I'm quite competent enough to do it, but my mum always turns around and says, "No, my gift to you is the Sunday lunch. I've done the Sunday Christmas. Sorry, I've done the Christmas dinner every Christmas since your dad and I got married, and you were born. So that's not going to change until I can't stand anymore. And what can you do? I just do everything else around it. I go up into the attic to get the Christmas decorations down. I put the decorations up. I take the decorations down. I, do the cleaning and the hoovering around afterwards. And my mum makes the Christmas dinner. Like I say, at some point I will make it her day where she does nothing. And hopefully that won't be too far down the road. But I also want my mum to be in the best of health. So, you also mentioned what Doctor Who episodes you would like to see back in the archive. Personally, I'd like to see the 10th Planet and at least the first episode of The Power of the Daleks to bridge the regeneration between Hartnell and Troughton. Invasion of Dinosaurs episode 1 is in true colour. Chroma dot recovery is great, but still has a long way to go. I used to love the missing episode articles in DWB, Doctor Who Bulletin, a fanzine that went on to become Dreamwatch and went mainstream. This was better than the official Doctor Who magazine. Yeah, I think I dabbled with Doctor Who Bulletin back in the day. This was when Simon Fernandez and I were picking up audio recordings of the missing Doctor Who episodes from all over the country. I remember we drove to Bournemouth once. I think that was to pick up the Ice Warriors, if I remember rightly. And we picked up telly recordings of stuff that hadn't been out on video yet. This was when video was the only medium. There was no DVDs, no Blu-rays. So that was a fun time. You're quite right. There are so many stories that we'd like to have back. Of course, I'd love to have the 4th episode of the 10th Planet. I've got the edition that everybody has, that's a Who fan, which is the first 3 episodes filmed and the 4th one animated. We now have the animated first Troughton story, Power of the Daleks. And Chroma Key, it doesn't look great, but it's better than nothing. I think we'd all love... Everybody, I think, would have their own opinion on what they'd like to see back. Me, I'd love the Patrick Troughton era to be all back as film, which will never happen in my lifetime. Don't think it'll ever happen in my lifetime. I get great enjoyment listening to audio recordings and watching the animated episodes to fill in the gap. It's better than nothing. My imagination, therefore, can fill in the gap, is what I'm going to say to that. But it always has done for all these years. Get Some In is a TV program, yeah. Hated it for one reason. Always reminded me of school the next day. Yes, it was a nice thing that Steve said, do you remember this TV show? Of course I remember a lot of TV shows. Get Some In was one that I watched only a couple of years ago. It was the theme tune that I remember more than anything. I mean, it's not one of the giants of comedy, but it was fun. So for you, it was broadcast on a Sunday, from what I can tell from what you're saying there. Great extra video from you this week. Time After Time was a brilliant way to kick off your film reviews. Tron and The Last Starfighter would be ones I'd love to see you cover. I'll make a note. I'll talk about what I've done this week at the end. It's not something that I sort of touch upon in the comments. You've obviously seen something, and during the week, and of course the blog goes out on a Sunday, so there's a tale of 2 or 3 days where people can see these things and comment on them. I'll talk about why I've done so much output this week at the end. But I think that'll be interesting listening to. Question for this week. Okay, it's the turn for the other Titan this week. Your favourite King Kong. I've looked on Wiki and there are quite a few films made of the ape. What are your top 3 favourites and why? Which film out of them all are an absolute stinker, if there is one? There are stinkers, but I haven't watched an awful lot of King Kong. It's my favourite because of the nostalgia I have and the impact it had watching the first King Kong as a child. So I'll always have that as my number one. That's never going to change. The how they made that film back in the 30s just blows my mind. So it's one of the great films of that era. I did watch the King Kong Jeff Bridges 1977 remake, which I found to be a bit of a snooze, to be quite honest. It was long, but I think the reason for that is more to do with my impatience as a child than it is the story and what it was trying to tell. I remember getting really excited about wanting to see King Kong because it was on the back cover of all my Marvel magazines from the States. There was always an advert for See King Kong at the cinema, and it took an absolute age for it to get over here. When it was over here, I didn't realise that it was going to be as long as it was. It was 2.5 hours, I think, from memory. It's close to that, or it seemed that way anyway. For somebody that usually sat down and watched at my age then Walt Disney stuff that was the Aristocats and Robin Hood with cartoons, stuff like that, and films like Seventh Voyage of Sinbad and all of those sort of films. Those films are like 90 minutes. To sit down and watch an epic like King Kong, it was an experience, but one that I didn't come away overjoyous about. It obviously had the effects of the day, mostly practical effects as well. So that was good. And then I suppose the other ones that come to mind are the modern ones, which is Peter Jackson's King Kong, which came out with a huge fanfare. And of course the King Kongs of late, which have tended to be Kong Island and Fighting Godzilla, which have all been entertaining popcorn films, but are not what I call quintessential King Kong. In other words, Peter Jackson's King Kong is quintessential. So I've mentioned three really, and that is the 77 King Kong, the Peter Jackson King Kong, and the original King Kong. Anything in between I've actually enjoyed. I don't think there's been one that I don't like. So I'm going to leave it that you know what my number one is, which is King Kong from the 30s. It's a toss-up between the modern King Kong from Peter Jackson and the 1977 King Kong with Jeff Bridges. Just purely because I was older when I saw Peter Jackson, and that is really like an effects fest. Again, drawn out where it didn't need to be drawn out. It's so compact, the original King Kong. It's such a nice film to watch. You don't feel like it's overstayed its welcome. I think that's the best way to say about that. So cheers, mate. Best wishes for your mother, my friend. Take care. Thank you very much. I wish I could do that in his accent. Can't do that, unfortunately. Then we get to Ian the Ramblings. Thanks, Ian, for commenting. I do watch your channel. Do love them. You really want to look out for Ian's channel. He does films and episodic reviews. What do I mean by that? Well, he's very big onto the Carry On films and Hammer Horror. But he also, if he's not doing the biggies like the films, doing TV stuff like Doctor Who, but he'll even take a production like Hammer House of Horror, which was a TV program with about 13 episodes, and interview the episodes one by one rather than do it as a box set. So definitely, if you want a comprehensive type review and some entertainment value to go with it, go and watch Ian. Absolutely brilliant. So he states, I do enjoy listening to your blog. I think it's because it gets my mind thinking about many random things. This usually evokes memories of the past, which often are a delight, seeing them in a different perspective. Since I started my channel in a more serious way, I've been reviewing Hammer films, as many of the gothic horror ones I can get. Then after I'd done that, I moved to do Hammer Productions, and that has been a wonderful experience in discovering some wonderful films. This week I watched Yesterday's Enemy, a 1959 film starring the brilliant Stanley Baker. It's a war film that still seems relevant today, dealing with war crimes on both sides. The more I researched it for my review, the more I realised how a low-budget film was able to do anything Hollywood could do. The British film industry is something we should be proud of. At Bray and Elstree Studios, Hammer created a jungle which looks authentic. You won't believe it was on location, but was brilliant direction, backed by some practical special effects. It works well. The actors gave such brilliant performances. The film is now on my favourites war film list. Hammer should always be seen in the history of films making as a well-organised, low-budget filmmaking company who produced outstanding films. It's been a great journey making these wonderful discoveries and increasing my love of the history of film. I see that love of film from you too. A question for you would be, which film did you watch which ignited that love and appreciation of films? Oh, wow. And that question has come up. And I have answered it. And I probably have a different answer every time I say it. Your most impressionate time is when you're a child, you know, before sort of like the age of 11, I would say. And as a lad, or from my point of view, a boy of a certain age, timing was everything. So I've always turned around and said that I have a love of all of that, those films I saw at Saturday Club. You know, going to the Saturday Club, watching a double bill. I watched films like Condor Man, Meteor, Escape from Witch Mountain, Aristocats, Robin Hood, Snow White, The Seven Dwarves, all of the stuff that kiddies would get to watch. You know, Herbie Goes Bananas, all that. But they never showed at Saturday Club Planet of the Apes, and it was my mother that actually allowed me to stay up late and watch that film when I should not have been able to have done so. I loved the shock ending. Everybody knows what the shock ending is, but I won't say what it is again. You never know. People are discovering films for the first time every day. But it got me so enthralled that I got into science fiction in a big way. You know, what is our future going to be like? Are we going to blow ourselves up? Are we heading towards a good future or a bad future? Is it going to be a mix? Is technology going to aid us or hinder us? All those things came to my mind after watching that film. So I have to probably say that my greatest appreciation would be Planet of the Apes. But I've seen a number of films that have influenced me and moved me. Rock God will always talk about Jaws, and I will mention it in equal measure to him. Jaws is an exceptional film. An exceptional film. A film that I can watch over and over again. Take it like this. We've all come across that point where we've got physical media on our shelves. You're going through the channels. Jaws is on ITV2 for the 50th time. And you will continue to go through the channels going, what am I going to watch? And eventually you'll go, actually, I fancy watching Jaws. Bang. You're back to Jaws. 100 channels. You'll have gone through every single one, scanning out all of them, and you'll go back to something that's comfort. That's all I can put it down to. Comfort and brilliant writing and just greatness in itself. What can you say? Thank you so much for the kind words, Ian. Please, any of these people that I mentioned, do go sub them. I don't say that an awful lot because I keep thinking to myself, it's obvious. If I'm reading something out that I've watched and I've turned around and said that was good, then go and have a look and scare yourself by finding a channel that you didn't think you were going to enjoy and you did. Then sub it. Best thing to do. So we move on now to Seb's place, and he's just got a one-liner, which is perfectly fine by me. It says, as always, enjoyed this late listen again, in brackets. Keep up the good work, mate. And I will. Thank you, Seb. I obviously look at your channel. I do like your channel this week. You were talking about inflation, really, and what computers cost in Argos and how much they are today. I love those types of articles. They're great. I never really thought about things too much in the past in regards to inflation. I just knew things were expensive. And anything that was over a certain figure in my head, I turned around and said, no chance my dad's going to buy me that. No chance my dad's going to buy me that. Possible my dad might buy me that. Oh, I'd love that. It's bloody expensive. I wonder how I can con my dad into saying that I need that. And it was like that all the time in my head. The Commodore 64 was a huge expense. The disk drive even more. I must have drove my dad mad, to be quite honest. Because I then bought the games, and those were out of my own pocket money. Because I wasn't in a state where I could actually buy my Commodore 64 in 1983, was it? Yeah. 82 for some. Yeah. So, you know, I had to have a little bit of help. I mowed lawns, I did chores around the house, I did a paper round. I did all the things kids do to get cash. So that was great. Go and watch Seb's channel. He's done a brilliant video this week. Other videos are there as well. 8-bit face-offs on certain games. Games that are deliberated on for why they are great when you think yourself they're not that great. Brilliant stuff. So definitely watch all that. And we moved to gaming since the 70s. Now he's put, this is my mate Steve, so you bastard. You know I love him to bits, so don't want any feedback on that. Hi Del, great blog again. I'm sorry to hear your mum was in hospital. I hope she's feeling better now. You too. The only comment I really have about your news section is the Prime Minister. Quite frankly, just mention of his name makes my bloody pressure shoot up. Cannot wait until the next general election to vote out these utterly corrupt, lying scumbags. We deserve better than this fiasco. It's like a third world dictatorship. Okay, rant over. Have you seen the new PlayStation Portable? It's a handheld by Sony. I would say it looks cool, but I don't see a use for it as it needs the constant internet connection to work. So the portable part seems to be rather, well, useless. Okay, get ready for 2 stupid questions. Just going to go back because I'm not quite sure whether I watched a video on the PlayStation Portable, but I know of it and I can talk about it. Nope. So the PlayStation Portable came up in my network stream for news, actually, saying Sony to launch a new handheld, which got me interested because I've had the Vista and I've had the PSP. When I actually got to see it, it looked very much like I've seen something like this before, and that was a tablet type display split between 2 sides of a joystick that holds the tablet in. So in other words, it was a wide design. It looks very much like a Switch, but it looks very much like it's a springy mechanism that you can put any phone or tablet into, but it's not, it's fixed. So what they've done is they've taken their top Sony DualSense controller, which to be quite honest is still considered probably the best controller out there. The haptic feedback and precision that joystick, that particular joystick has is brilliant. Got one over here. There we go. Doesn't look anything fantastic, but believe me, there is force feedback and haptic feedback in these triggers. The buttons are just they just feel in your hands. You've got the 2 analog stick, and of course you've got a touchpad. It's got a microphone. It's got everything you probably possibly need. What you need to think of with this portable is think of it being split about there and stretched so that this is over here and this is over here with a screen in the center, right? And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to pair it with your PS5 and it'll play all the games that you've got installed. You have to have your machine on standby and you must have an internet connection for the Wi-Fi part to play games on. You cannot play cloud games at the moment. It comes up with an error. That's what I know at the moment. The thing is damn expensive from what I've been told. It's an OLED display, so it looks great from every angle, and its intention is for you to continue playing PS5 games when your telly is not available to you. It's not intended to be taken, I think, on a bus. For a start, you're, just as Steve has said, you're trapped to to a Wi-Fi connection. It has to be on the same network, I think. That's why cloud doesn't work. So it has got a limited use. Would I buy one? Yeah, no use of it. Do I want one? Of course. Looks gorgeous. I'll have anything that people want to send me. I'm a right greedy git. But I'm now looking at things from a need point of view. There's no need for this particular device for me, personally. So it's a pass. But I do recommend that you just type in PlayStation Portal. Have a look yourself, see what you think. It's a beautiful looking device. It's just not for me. So, okay, get ready for 2 stupid questions. Oh, okay. Stupid, all right, I bet they're not. Do you play any games with Japanese voices? I must admit to being rather weird. What's new? In that I'm quite into some JSRPGs, but I can't bear to hear the voices. I've nothing against Japanese people at all, but the whining, shrieking voices in JRPGs can drive me potty. So if there's no English dub, I just turn the voices off. Do you play these games, and are you fine with it? So that's the first question. First Japanese game I played, I think, was Skies of Arcadia on the SNES. Or should I say, that was the first Japanese game I played with a Japanese language to it. Because it wasn't converted when I first played it. I actually bought it from Japan in the back of those gaming magazines that we used to have where you had imported SNES stuff. And my God, yeah, that was hard. Took me a long time to understand the game mechanic. I had to have a magazine explain to me what the controls were, and I had to fathom it out. And then the English dub came out, so there you are. Shouldn't have been impatient, should I? I've played a lot of Japanese shooters, and they haven't really bothered me. When it comes to the Japanese language itself, I've watched it a number of times in films, and I do know where you're coming from, because they go very high-pitched for the most unusual expression of the sentence that they're reading out. It's not for them, perfectly fine for them, but for us, it's like, what? Oh, what's all that squeak? What? No, you know. I mean, I remember watching Monkey. It was a TV show which was great on BBC Two, and then years later somebody then pointed out to me what the Japanese authentic version sounded like, and that's very distracting because I've got used to how Monkey sounds in the English language. Didn't get it in the Japanese one. I think there's been a lot of foreign films I've watched that I have actually gone and seen and heard the foreign edition. Robinson Crusoe being one, The Flashing Blade being another. And as I've mentioned before, the odd Godzilla film I've seen in its native language. So I'm not going to turn around and say it puts me off and I won't do something unless it's it's been dubbed into our language. I won't say I'll go totally that flat line, but I will say I'm 70% with you. Sometimes it's just wait for it to come out in your in the language that you understand. That's not taking anything away from the Japanese language, like you. I've got great respect for the Japanese, actually. I mean, half the stuff I want comes from there. And I've known some Japanese friends, and they've absolutely been wonderful. They'll do anything for me. Wonderful, because we've had some foster people next door that fostered some Japanese students. They were great to be around. They used to come round and play on some of my handhelds. and that's because they missed them because they didn't have them over here, and they weren't allowed to bring them. So that was nice. Okay, I broke the rules a little bit by letting them play on it, but at the end of the day, I thought, no harm, no foul, as long as I don't get dobbed in. I didn't really care too much. Question 2. Who is your favourite character in Dad's Army, and why is it Private Joe Walker? Why do people do that to me? Ask me a question and then give you the best answer. Yes, I do like Private Joe Walker. Back in the day when I saw Dad's Army, I suppose like a lot of people, I had a fondness for Clive Dunn's part. You know, an old Diddy figure that basically says the same things over and over again. I wasn't into the spiff who got everything for you, you know, the latest tights and all of that sort of stuff. I wasn't into the Scottish character. I found Mannering to be an authority figure, and there's nobody that I know of that loved the headmaster of their primary school, which is when I was watching Dad's Army. It was when I was at primary school. Don't remember anybody thinking anything that other than the headmaster is a bloody stubborn person with a stern face that would scare you to death by just going boo. So, you know. So you've got it. You've got your answer. It would have been, you know, the Private, because he was daft as a brush, and you just felt sorry all the time for him. But I do have a soft spot for Clive Dunn's character. Yeah, brilliant. They're doing the animated ones now. They found some recordings, which, well, they've been around for years, the recordings. And they've decided to call them the missing episodes animated, just like Doctor Who. And I've watched one so far, and it's not too bad. Not too bad. Take care, my friend, and love to your mum. In brackets, YouTube, stop deleting my comments, you piece of shit. Yes. YouTube, can you get a handle on this, please? I know in your help comments to creators like myself, you put, after time that you've evaluated what the problem is, you found out that it was nothing to do with you, that it was to do with how it was entered and all of this sort of stuff. I don't believe all of that. If you do, give some better notes, like avoid characters like this. Write it in Word and copy it in that way. Something, right? Other than just say, well, we've looked and we've done a heart-hearted approach to looking at it. And most of the time we found it's actually the user's own settings that's causing it. Don't agree with all of that. LFC Gamer and Vlogs, thank you so much for commenting as well. And by the way, Steve, thank you so much, sir. LFC says, superb blog as usual, Dal. Sorry to hear you and your mum are having a few health-related issues. Wishing you both a speedy recovery. The well-being of your family comes before anything else. I suppose the Atari 2600 is a decent piece of kit if you are part of that audience, that is, of course. I'm personally not, due to there being other easier and much cheaper methods when it comes to playing these sort of games. If people are willing to spend a few extra pennies for reasons Martroid alluded to, by all means, then they can do so. I just find it a bit too steep in price for what I feel comes across as a clone system, even though it's officially branded as an Atari. Yeah, and I've got a question mark over the official branding as an Atari, when Atari is no more, really. It disbanded a long time ago. And it's just other companies carrying it on. There is no inventor of a new chip that's making something new at Atari. It is rehashes of systems and reselling them as mini consoles or clone editions. So I even have an argument in regards to, is it really Atari? Because what is Atari now? I agree with you, totally. I think I mentioned last week, I said it all depends on the person that wants to buy it. I remember seeing a video this week from Down the Rabbit Hole, which I'll talk about a little bit later on, where he's gushing over this Atari console. And to be quite honest, I was as well. It acted really well, and we'll talk about that later on. But this Atari 2600 is really just an Android phone inside a box and a cartridge that's memory banked into sections so that you use dip switches to choose the game that you want, and then plug it in, and it downloads it into the memory of this new device. And basically you then play old Atari games from the late 70s, early 80s. Wow, great, fantastic. Hardly new, hardly innovating. It looks the business. Then again, so do so many other versions that you've brought out over the years. So yeah, I'm in two minds on it as well. Are there any songs that you think should have been a UK #1 hit, but sadly got robbed of its spot by something of lesser quality, or was just plain awful? One famous example comes to mind in 1981, Vienna by Ultravox. It was, in my humble opinion, wrongly denied by the top spot by Joe Dulce's Shut Up Your Face. If there's one consolation, at least Midger would have a #1 later, in 1985 with If I Was. If I Was a Younger Man. Yeah, lovely track. I remember that. 1985 brings back so many happy memories. A tricky one, because there's obviously a lot of tracks that have been, I think, should have been there. I personally, the one that comes to mind for me, the #1 at the time was Jennifer Rush. Oh God. Yeah, The Power of Love, wasn't it? And I always thought that a-ha's Take on Me was a better track. It had the video, it had a killer video. It had a track that basically was brilliant, because I mean, I like synths anyway, and it's got a great starting keyboard riff. The voice, you can't knock a-ha. I mean, that range in that voice, my God. And it's such a catchy tune, and you hear it all the time now. It stood the test of time. The Power of Love was just there, really, I think, from the power of the film. So in my opinion, when you're talking about a song and its worth in its place in history, Take on Me should have been #1, and it's sacrilege that it wasn't. But think there have been so many others. I think Ghostbusters, as much as people hate the tune now, back then, and everybody loved the film and the tune, that didn't get to #1. I think that was denied off the top spot, I think, by Stevie Wonder, I think. Not sure. Going into the modern era and thinking about tunes that we loathe now, but basically loved back then and didn't come to #1. Robbie Williams' Angels, I believe, didn't get to #1. Now, here's a tune that I remember seeing on the pop charts. It was on the Saturday Kiddies shows. I can still see now Robbie Williams walking along the beach, and that tune that we all know now. And it's got a very poignant set of words to it. I believe that didn't get to #1. I believe, believe it or not, Teletubbies was #1 that year. Yeah, God. Teletubbies. I mean, at the end of the day, kiddies have got to have their say, and they've got to have their time, and they've got to have their, time to listen to stuff in the charts. There are pensioners out there that want to listen to what they remember. Kiddies like light-hearted and kiddie stuff. We as teenagers and adults like something with a melody, words, a statement, or whatever. it reminds me back to what I was talking about when it comes to Christmas tunes. That for too many years now we've had X Factor number ones, or number ones for charities, or other reasons other than it's a Christmassy tune, where back in the day it would have been Slade and Wizard and Elton John and all of these bringing out a Christmas track because it's Christmas, right? And I don't know when the rot started in, but I'm pretty sure it is around Pop Idol and X Factor and all of that. That's when the rot came in for me, and that goes hand in hand with why Christmas isn't the best of times for me either. Do you still have any box sets of TV and or film series on VHS? If not, which did you own on said format? Well, I had the Doctor Who's on VHS. I've just started sending them to a friend called Sam. He's got the DVDs, but he so loves the artwork on the VHS ones that he wants to have those in his collection, and they're just taking up too much space for me. VHS tapes are nothing. I think the Doctor Who ones can raise some money, but I was quite happy for me to turn around to him and say, look, if you want to pay the postage, you can have what I've got in my box out the back there of VHS Doctor Who, because I've got them now on DVD and Blu-ray format, and I'm not such a snob that I want to hold on to VHS. I bought loads of box sets on VHS. I bought Lost in Space. I bought Twilight Zone, The Invaders, a lot of TV, basically. And I bought box sets of films. I bought the Star Trek 5 film collection. I remember buying that, which the spines made up the picture of the Enterprise. That sticks out. The Indiana Jones trilogy, the Back to the Future trilogy, all of those bought on tape are considered box sets. But I must admit, TV was a thing, and I used to love the fact that I had all of The Prisoner or all of Star Trek, where I could just put the tape in, and they would usually be about 2 episodes per tape. Star Trek definitely was. The original series, the Next Gen series, the Deep Space Nine, and the Voyager all came out on VHS, and they all came out in a 2 episode tape format. You can imagine 7 seasons, 24 episodes per season, and then you've got the seasons. You've got the series names of Next Generation, Voyager, and Deep Space Nine, and even Enterprise, which had less seasons and episodes. How many tapes that would be? 2 episodes. That's 12 tapes per season. 7 times 12. It goes on and on and on. You can do the math yourself. You would need huge space, and I did in my 3-bedroomed house. But I moved back home. No space. I've still got my VHS player, so I do keep the odd thing. Usually it's the stuff that I incredibly will not part with. Certain films that I forgot that are time coded, that are hard to get hold of. Some, cut for censorship reasons, films that I'll still keep in the VHS format. But on the whole, I'm happy that the VHSs are going to a nicer home. And that ends that. Thanks, LFC. And we get to Wee Bob Art. He basically says, great blog, Dale. Just take easy and look after yourself and your mum. Family comes first. My music from the movies night in Glasgow was good, but my wife wasn't feeling great, so we had to head off early. The stories from Peter Capaldi and Richard E. Grant were great. The whole theme was that of Patrick Doyle, the composer who appeared on stage prior to us having to head away. Anyway, it was a decent night while we were there. On another note, I look forward to the Quest review if you get time to do that, as I've been tempted, but I decided to buy a Samsung tablet instead for drawing. I've seen Brightburn, the film, a while back and found it good but unsettling, as I wasn't too aware of what the movie was when I watched it. Anyway, question for next time. Have any movies that you have loved become tainted by over-analysing the stories and finding plot holes or issues with the movie that didn't make sense? Do you continue to let these plot holes annoy you, or do you just sit back, eat some popcorn with the lights down low and the sound up high while being transported to that universe and watching along? Absolutely. I don't let it get to me. But I do think people overanalyze things. I remember I watched Napoleon this week, and the amount of criticism there is saying, this isn't historic, this isn't in the film, why isn't this in the film, all of this sort of stuff. I didn't go for a history lesson, I went to be entertained. I know of Napoleon, I've studied him while I was at school, I haven't thought about him for years. I wanted to go and see an epic. And if that epic was semi-historically correct, I'm happy. And that's exactly what I came away with Napoleon, which I'll talk a little bit. You'll see a little trailer of as well later on. So I don't think there's a particular film that I think has been over-analysed in my mind that comes to memory right now. I do know that there have been hole after pothole after pothole in regards to all of the Marvel films, like this doesn't make sense, and why did this happen here, and why did this, when we went back in time and did this not happen? And that makes no sense, because if you look at the theory of time with Back to the Future, if you do this, you create another universe and all of this sort of stuff. I'm sick to death of hearing all of these. It's a story, for God's sake, and it's a story probably based on a comic book read by a teenager back in 1974 or something, right? So kudos to the writers and script writers that are writing these films in certain films that are being slammed. You've got a terrifically hard job of pleasing a fan and pleasing a person that's never seen or heard of Marvel in their life. But I say the same about horror. Horror gets a bad rep. Science fiction gets a bad rep. Comedy gets a bad rep. All of these have got potholes. Why this, and continuity issues. Like he was having a comb in his right hand in one scene, and then it was in his left the next time that the camera pointed to him, and all of this sort of stuff. Oh my God, they're fun to watch. Those, don't bloody go overboard about it. So I don't think I'm going to be very good here and name one. More likely am I going to talk about a series, and I do think that the Marvel films get a huge ripping when it comes to potholes that they've had to try and explain later on, or prove themselves correct in another story. I'm not a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe now as I was. My character has always been Spider-Man. But I do get sick of plot hole problems. Unless, of course, I find it myself, and then, of course, I'm gleefully happy that I'm the person who found it. He goes. So we'll go past that. I've got a question for you, Wee Bob, actually. I noticed that you put up in, I think, YouTube land, the link to Rebella 7 that says it will help you out if I click on it. But when I clicked on it, it just took me to a site where I wasn't putting any code or anything in, and I wondered how it worked, that it would recognize you as a referral. If you could just advise me of that in a comment this week. I definitely want the $70, you know, the $130 or $40 Rebella for $30. I do enough drawings for me to warrant that, because I've done some work with pen and pencil on my laptop that's just here. That's a touchscreen laptop. So and it uses a pen. So I am interested in getting some software for that, which I think will be a great addition to the software I've got on there at the moment, which is just really Illustrator and Photoshop and so forth. And we get to the last two. Colin. Lovely Colin. Love Colin. He always puts things steadfast and just to the point. Oh, bloody hell, buddy. I hope you and the health problems are solved soon. The Pigman being brought back in just shows how little of the barrel is left to scrape in the Tory camp. The TARDIS is definitely a spaceship. Hardware tinkering is fun. Hardware issues are not. Having fun with one of my hard disks at the moment, though that was hopefully fixed by unplugging the cables in the affected drive. And also got a video mod for my VIC-20, which I'm going to fit and test this weekend. You aren't alone. You aren't showing any signs of Alzheimer's that I recognise, if that's any comfort. Not really. I think I still am. Yes, I'm not being able to express myself like I used to anymore. I don't know. I tend to bath, then shower at home. It's nice to soak, and it also softens the face ready for shaving. I shower at work when I get there after cycling. In Get Some In, I remember the man in charge was a corporal. He was briefly promoted to sergeant, but lost that after causing an explosion thanks to his ego combined with predictable negligence, insisting someone lighting his cigarettes while being warned about the flammable spill. I know what you mean about watching videos when ill. It's also the same when tired or depressed, and this time of the year is not good for me at all. Yeah, we'll get to your question in a moment. I can't not appreciate what you put each week, Colin, because it really is to the point, and some of the times it meets my same ramblings with you, and sometimes we're black and white with each other. But that's the niceness of having a friendship, where you can deliberate, case your own state, go away going either with another impression or I knew I was right, and not changing your opinion. That's what I like about Colin. And anybody that has watched my blog for a number of for a year or so now, please go and see his site. He does a blog himself, and he's forever doing these high score challenges. The guy is immense, with having to play, of trying to play every game that somebody just throws at you. It's almost like a dare game. It's like, oh, I dare you to play this game. You want that game playing? Right, here we go. He's up and ready with a joystick going, oh, I don't quite get these controls, but I'm going to keep playing it, young man. Keeps playing it, and then he goes, there you are, played your game. Brilliant. Thanks very much. I'm enlightened. I never played that one before. Thanks very much. And that's how Colin is. And I can't do Welsh accents. So the question for the next blog: when you have a cold, what non-medical things do you take to ease the symptoms? I do like Fisherman's Friend as a lozenge, but as a drink, I'm rather partial to hot lemonade. Even better if it has a dash of whiskey in it. Now, I have to be very careful. Now, it was my doctor, and his name was Dr. Cherry at the time, that told me I had hypertension. And I was prone to getting colds because I was quite portly and I didn't go for long walks like I do now. So basically, the elements would get to me. The change in temperature inside the house would get me a cold. But the trouble is, most cold remedies have a decongestion. And a decongestion is something that raises your blood pressure to the point where the heat of your body is naturally fighting the infection. Blood pressure tablets for people that are high in hypertension are there to lower your blood pressure, so they counteract each other. So you have to take special sort of like Lemsips and stuff, really. You can't just take the normal stuff. I suppose I like Vicks nasal spray as that old tube, not the liquid that you push up your nose. And I used to like Olbas on my pillars to go to bed at night. But they made your eyes sting. Never was into things like Vicks Vapor Rub. When it comes to sweets, aren't they all cherry these days? I don't know. But I used to love a tune. My mum loves lockets. That goes by anything. She loves lockets. She'll get lockets when she ain't got a cold. She likes them that much. She likes that little honey that comes out. And I tell you what, it is a little amount of honey these days. I mean, if that sweet cracks open, you'll tend to find that there is less than I don't think it covers your little nail on your littlest finger when it comes to liquid inside those tablets. So, hope that answers that. I do like a locket as well. Martroid is the last one. Thank you very much, Martroid. It says, I know what you mean about the 2600 Plus, Dell. It looks like a nice piece of kit, but there's already so many ways that we can play these games. I think that maybe its main appeal is to those who have to get any new system that comes along because they don't want to miss out, or those with expendable incomes who don't mind splashing the cash. Not that there's anything wrong with that, I suppose, each to their own. And yeah, we've sort of like covered a little bit earlier, and I'm sorry, Martra, because your one might have been a bit earlier, but I just put it into not into any order, just you ended up being at the end. So we've covered the 2600. But I mean, you heard what I said last week. You'll hear what I've said this week, and I think you'll find that you've got your answer, that I'm the same, and I don't even know what Atari is anymore. So, you know, it has its place. And with that, we've got to the end. I think I've missed a question. Yes, I have. What is your favourite game by Sean Southern, and also your least favourite? Was a question that LFC did, and I skipped that and moved along and started off with the songs. And I've got to think a minute here, because I just remembered that coming up, and I've got to think here. Because Sean Southern's done some crackers, but he's also done so many, it's hard to sort of like think. You know what I mean? I think in his early days, this is no reflection on him, he did Fruit Simulator, you know, like a one-arm bandit type simulator for many machines. I think the Commodore 64 was one of them. And to be quite honest, I've had those on cartridge format for my VIC-20, so it's not that it was a bad game or anything, it's just that what's the benefit in it, or what's the use in it? I didn't like a shoot 'em up that he did. It was called Disaster Blaster, if I remember rightly. We'll put that down as one of the least likely games, but there's too many good ones. You know, you got Trailblazer 2, Kickstart, you got the Lotus games on the Amiga, you've got Pod on the C16 and Commodore 64, you've got, oh god, I even liked, although the redeeming feature of it, Formula 1 on the Commodore 64, because the Robert tune I just played to death. Do you know what I mean? And I've had the benefit of having a nice little chat with Sean Southern. I didn't ask him too many questions, but I had a respect for him, and he said himself he did so many. Sometimes it was just he was asked to do it, and other times it was, I've got a new routine in this machine, so I'm going to get something out today, get myself some money. I think that's all I've got to really say on that, to be quite honest, LFC. And I hope that's a good enough answer for you. I don't really have bad games by him, but if it was, it's not it was a bad game, it's just it's lackluster, and that would be things like that Fruit Simulator. I think he also did a Duck Hunt, which is the old carnival game. It's just lackluster. It's nothing there. It's the only redeeming feature is that it was $1.99. You know what I mean? That's it. So we get to watched on TV. Yay! Watched on YouTube, should I say. So we've got, and I'll go through these as quickly as I possibly can. This Week in Retro and Tech Mode are my two normal shows, as you know. This Week in Retro was a bit mixed. It did Doom and Doom 2 on the Jaguar. Well, how many times are we going to see Doom and Doom 2 written, you know, for different systems? We had Scalers for retro gaming, where they were talking about how scaling works when you plug in, you know, your aerial or your output from your console into a HDMI device, and they wanted to talk a little bit about scalers and how, you know, we've come on from the early days. And then there was a question about what was Commodore's second machine, for which they wanted to highlight that between the PET and the VIC-20 there was a Commodore chess machine, which was listed as a chess computer. It is difficult. They'll always say the VIC-20 was the second machine, but actually the VIC-20 had a it also had a prototype sold in Japan, as did the Commodore 64. So it's weird how the Japanese market got something a little bit different to the rest of the world, but the rest of the world was such mass produced that that was what they considered to be the second machine out, and the third machine out, and the fourth machine out. So I was mixed with This Week in Retro this week, but overall I enjoyed it. Nice hour watch. And then Tecmo did the Yoto audio player system plus the Beatles and Queen albums in Yoto card format. Yeah, so Yoto is a audio player sold abroad in Japan, I think, North America, that uses cards similar to those that you'd put in a PC engine, like a Hue card, and you can play it therefore on this new device. What it also says on the back of these albums is that you can actually tap them on your phone and it will play them as a on your phone, because they are the original tracks. They are the Beatles album, and they are the you know, whatever album that's out there. What did I say? Beatles. So yeah, with the greatest Beatle hits and things like that. Sergeant Pepper's albums on it. So it was an interesting 40 minutes because he went over the device brilliantly, you know, talking about its wireless deck, what the images on the screen mean, how it's aimed at kids, and it teaches kids by using some YouTube access because it goes over the internet, etc., etc. So it was an interesting one. So we moved to Lee Wilbraham. Now that's a new one for me. So it's Lee, spelled Leigh, then Wilbraham, Wilbraham. He's got a channel because he likes to play music, and he's just got, this week, as it's only just been released, the Genos 2. The Genos, by the way, is Yamaha's workstation keyboard, and if anybody knows anything about me, if you look over to my shoulder here and you look over there, there is a piano. That is what they call a Tyros, and the Tyros was the predecessor to the Genos. I would love it. I looked at the price of it, £5,499. No bloody chance this year of me getting that keyboard. I'd love it. Don't get me wrong, and it sounds incredible. I mean, the super articulated voices on this particular edition of the keyboard, brilliant. And there's so many other quality of life improvements across the board. They really have listened to listen to the audience that they're trying to sell the keyboard to. And it's amazing that when the Tyros came out, the Tyros 2 came out literally 3 years later. The Tyros 3 came out another 3 years after that. Tyros 4 was 2 years. Tyros 5 was 2 years. The Genos was 7 years. And the Tyros 2, the Genos 2 is another 8 years. 8 years between technologies. So you can imagine I might be able to buy a Genos 1 at a reasonable price because everybody will be buying the Genos 2 now. This is where you start going, but then you could really buy a really, really cheap Tyros 5 or 4, which were flagships only within the last 10 years. Isn't that so much better, a much cheaper option? And you still get those wonderful, loud voices. But there's something in my brain that goes, yeah, but it's not the voices that I heard in that video on that Genos 2, though, are they? They're not like that. That's what you want, that one. So I tend to talk myself out. Thank God, because I haven't got £5,400. RMC. Now, he did a retrospective of what the Super Graphics is and why did it fail. The Super Graphics came out as part of the PC Engine range. So it uses hue cards to load the games up, or CD. The Super Graphics only had 7 games for it and basically didn't sell. It's a shame. He opened one up, he showed you what the differences was, which was a new graphic chip and a new CPU and more RAM. But it wasn't enough. By this point, people were buying SNESs and Mega Drives, and the PC Engine really didn't stand a chance. Definitely worth a watch. Then I went to a site called Freedom's Gear Reviews. Freedom's Gear Reviews. Write that down for yourself. When I got my new camera, which I'm hoping as I've ironed out most of the bugs now, it's a low light camera, but it's not that fantastic with low light. But you get a coupon to have something called the virtual ring light. What this virtual ring light is it opens an app and it turns it creates a ring on your monitor and then shines the white level for just the white part of the ring. So you can have a light as your second monitor can become a light. And I've been testing it and it's not bad. And you can change it to all different colours and all different brightnesses. It will only go as high as the mid level of your screen, but most of the time it's a good little thing. Need to do some more testing of it though. Then we've got Says Sticks Mix. He's that one that I told you about the last couple of weeks in regards to fixing problems on machines, like charging not working, or speakers not connected, or whatever, or lines down the screen. He was asked to do a weird job. This bloke gave him a SNES, or the case of a SNES, and then gave him a SNES Mini and said, can you put the SNES Mini inside the SNES? And the reason for it was because he wanted to take away the fact that you can only have like 1 or 2 games was one. Second one was the control system. Third one was the way that it switches itself on and off. He thought it was handled much better in the SNES Mini. And therefore he wanted to commission this guy which happens to be SNES Sticks, to put the little SNES inside the bigger SNES. I found that hilarious, to be quite honest. But he did it. Managed to wire up a reset plug, managed to wire up a on-off button, managed to wire up a power button, and managed things to go by composite out the back, and HDMI. So he did a number of things and got it to work. And kudos to the guy. I can't imagine him ever needing to do it again, but you never know. And then we've got some of the stuff that I've watched with great delight for my film hobby. So I start off with Rock God like I do every week. So Rock God had a busy week. He did a video upgrade of a film called Absurd, which is one of those video nasty titles. He managed to get an upgrade to a much better quality, one which used the original slipcase cover. So he was immensely happy with that. He got a new box set called Outsiders, which he took great delight in unboxing, and I believe he's got round to watching it now. And then he's been in various chats, although I've not been in those chats now for a week or so. So I haven't seen him in those chats. But I wish him incredibly well because he entertains me with his own content. Did you see that? As I said, has sort of like stopped doing chats, although he did one last week. But he's concentrating now on doing movie reviews. And going off to festivals and reporting back on them. So this week he did a Love Actually 20th anniversary review because it's at the cinema again. He did a 5 actors I like and a 5 actresses I don't like retrospective, which was interesting. And he also did a review of Fiendish Freddy's film that's now out at the moment, which I've already explained to you. I thought was quite fun, but not much else. And I'm just going to do a jump cut now because I've been talking now for a good hour and 40 minutes, the longest I've been for a long time. So I'll speak to you in a moment. So that was just a little pause just because I needed to splash my face and so forth. I hope that didn't disrupt anything too much. But we get to your YouTube stuff now, and I really do appreciate you guys that are doing your own content, that are part of Mainmeister's Discord. I was dabbling with doing my own Discord channel at one point, but I wanted mine to be with film and with gaming and nostalgic elements, which would be different to Mainmeister, so it wouldn't be trying to attract things away from anybody. I'm big on the community things, but because I'm part of Denny's Discord and I'm part of Mainmeister's Discord, it would really be just an overlap, and it's not really required. I did create one, but it's there with nobody in it but me. So there we go. Your YouTube stuff, Down the Rabbit Hole. So what can I say about Down the Rabbit Hole? Brilliant stuff. You know I watch him every week. He did a show off of his Atari Arcade Game Station Pro, and to be quite honest, I was very impressed. My God, it wasn't just an Atari 2600. This stuff played SNES stuff, Mega Drive stuff, and for an oldish type, for that particular type of console, I was quite impressed by it. And the controllers seemed pretty good as well. And he had paddles. So I thought, wow, that's really nice. Like I say, some consoles can fill in that gap. And Atari, I think, have done more clones of their old stuff over and over and over again. But this one is the Game Station Arcade, so slightly different. But it was pretty good. And then he did a review of a Nintendo DS game called Rocket Slime. It was like a tower defense game, quite fun. I did actually find it and play it myself. I'm not really into that particular type of game too much. I like some tower defenses on my Steam library, but it's nice that you can just pick up a handheld from the past and find something equally as enjoyable. So again, you're learning something new when you go to Down the Rabbit Hole. Then we get to gaming since the 70s. And the reason that gaming since the 70s is different to Robert and different to Keith is the fun element. He will just randomly find a game and go, hey, I fancy playing this. I wonder how many times I can die in it. I'm pretty sure he does it. Like for that, how many times can I die? How many times can I not work out how to do this bloody screen. Marvelous. I get so much enjoyment watching Steve's channel. And he did Island of Dr. Destructo on the Amstrad, which was a weird game. My God, even I couldn't work it out. There was this plane going round and round, shooting things like going round and round like Time Pilot. And there was a great big battleship underneath, and every so often it would say all the ships are destroyed and the main ship's destroyed, onto the next level, and you get an extra life. Interesting watch. Not a game I would want to go back to, I have to say. He did a Homesoft disc. Now, this is quite interesting because Homesoft is just a load of games with a menu system, and there are literally hundreds of them. So he can randomly choose a disc, and it'd have 5, 6, 7 games on there. All be random. They're not in alphabetical order. They would be of the time that those discs come out. And it really is like a, I've got this mystery disc, let's go through it type thing. Wonderful. Love those. That's the best way that you see a game that you've never seen before in your life. He did Hunchback on the BBC, which was interesting this week to watch, because last week I watched Seb do the Hunchback on the 64 Spectrum and Amstrad. So looking at the BBC one was an interesting watch. And he also did a game on the Electron called Camelot, which was quite fun. I don't know too much about the Electron. I didn't play too much. I always thought of it as just being a low budget, less memory BBC, and from that point of view it'd have less colours and less memory to do what you want. But apparently there are some wondrous things on there. I might have to go and visit the Electron on my Mister, because I'm starting to see that I'm missing a big chunk of stuff. That's the beauty of Steve's channel and why I recommend it. Robert's Retro Gaming always entertains. Now, he does his Minecraft stuff. He's doing a recent series on a game called Euphoria, which I've got. And I played for a bit, but I might go back to it. He's starting to scratch that itch, you know, where I go, do you know what? I'm going to load this up. And I'm going to destroy him at my scores. Not really, Robert. You've got nothing to worry about. But he also played Kung Fu Master on the 2600, Maze War on the Atari 800, and an old favourite, Spy vs Spy. And I love going back to these old ones, because Spy vs Spy to me was a 64 game. I know it was on the Atari. And it's just nice to see another version. Almost the same, but not quite. Obviously, the machines are different powers. Probably different coders. So that was great as well. Thank you, Robert. I constantly love going back to your channel and watching the stuff that you do each week. I'm not quite there going back to Minecraft yet. You know what'll happen is I'll buy a server and and I'll offer you to go on it, and it'll just be a waste of money again. Seb's Place. Interesting article this week, one that's quite popular, but still interesting. And that is, you go to a website where you can see an inflation converter, and you go to a catalogue and you see how much you were paying for computers and consoles back in the day based on inflation. And oh my God, we were spending all sorts of money on stuff that today we could buy a PS5 on. And yet we considered it as just the mainstay old retro computer now. I love those. They're brilliant. Keep doing your stuff, Seb. The quality of your stuff is just, it's just astronomical. Now you've overtaken quite so many of older channels that I used to frequent. They've sort of like gone by the wayside now. Then we've got 20th Century Gaming, who did a sort of like a catalogue of showing off Thalamus games between 86 and 88, which was quite fun to watch, because I didn't buy every Thalamus game. So some of the games I missed, and it's nice to see them sort of like being played. Like it's almost like standing in front of an arcade machine in an arcade house, and wandering past all the arcade machines and watching the demo play, just to show you what the game was like, and stitching them all together. Very nice. And he did an announcement saying that he's also going to introduce some Spectrum games now into his channel. Brilliant. Look forward to that. Why tie yourself down to one machine? There's so many lovely machines out there, so many good ones, so many that offer you a challenge different to the Commodore 64. So that's brilliant. And then my old mate Mainmeister, who is always a mainstay with me. I watch him as often as I possibly can. It's been a bit difficult with health and everything just recently. But he did a best budget retro gaming handheld called the Powkiddy Reb 30. Now, Powkiddy is nothing new to me. In fact, I've got a Powkiddy here. There it is. This is a Powkiddy. And I got great enjoyment out of that Powkiddy when I had it. Problem is with it is that I don't really do too much handheld stuff anymore. He did say in his video that one of the exciting things that he wanted to go back to was something called Pico 8. But he didn't actually show that off in his video, which I was a bit disappointed with. I'd love him to show that off at some point to me, the Pico 8. It might force my hand into buying another handheld, but right now, don't need one, don't want one. My mister is good enough. I don't travel around anymore, but I do like the Game & Watch idea and the Pico 8 idea on it, because the display was just so lovely. And of course he did his Friday waffle. And that basically is it, other than me. Now, I've talked a little bit about me on what I've done this week. Let me just remind myself on what I did. I'll go back to the content. So, Down the Rabbit Hole wanted me to do a sort of answer his questions on the VR device called the Meta3. And I decided, why not? Down the Rabbit Hole's my friend. He's thinking about buying a PSVR 2. He's thinking that he could go down the Meta route. I offered him another option that he could buy an older Oculus 2. And he has to walk a line between what he wants to do, watch films or play games. And he quite rightly turned around and said that PSVR 2 games are starting to slow down, and they all seem to be like add-ons. They're not specifically written for VR. The Meta 3 is different. So I answered a few questions, didn't answer them brilliantly, but I tried to put a lot of thought into it and answer some questions. And then I answered him in the last question because he said, I've really got to decide whether I want it for films or not. And I answered him in a comment. And basically I turned around and said, you've got less options when it comes to movies with the PSVR 2 headset. For a start, it doesn't support 3D. You will be tethered by that line that comes directly from the PS5 to actually do the streaming. And, you know, you have to really attach things like a hard drive to put the films onto. You can't, you know, there's no Wi-Fi or anything like that. And it's very difficult to connect or play a film through a PS5 and it go to your sound bar or your amp. It will always want to tether it to the earpieces of the headset itself. There are ways around that, but it's convoluted. So my real answer is you do need to make that decision, films or games. You will be able to do certain amount of films with the PSVR and have great enjoyment with the games. With the Meta 3, you'll be able to do loads of things with films, quite a bit with games. So there is no happy medium on this, and it really is down to you. Based on that, I did a little test of recording my gameplay on the Meta 3 with a game called Samba de Amigo Virtual Party, because I remember Samba de Amigo on the Dreamcast, and I thought this is going to be like Lightsaber, but is going to be with them maracas. It's Black Friday. That's what it's called. Can't help it. And I had a 40% code from Meta, and I bought it. It wasn't very expensive with the discount. It came in at $12.99, and it brought back so many memories of Samba de Amigo on the Dreamcast that I got great enjoyment out of it. So I recorded it and put it up just so that you could see it. Obviously, you don't get anywhere near what I was looking at. It's just a left lens recording, not two lens recording, with no virtual experience. So you got to imagine the space that I was seeing when I was trying to play these maracas and do these poses and things. But I had an immense time, and I found that really good to do a recording. And then I started doing a retrospective and unboxing of films, which I took great enjoyment from, because they take 10 minutes to do, 20 minutes to prepare. And all I have to do is stand there and talk about why I like this film, what the film's about, and what do you get if you buy the disc in physical media. Loved it. Not getting so many views or anything like that on any of these. My blog obviously gets the most, but it's the enjoyment I got from doing them. That was the thing. So with that, you now know that I've brought out 3 other videos along with this blog, and it might continue to do that, especially when it comes to the films, because they take literally 10 or 15 minutes to do, and they take away that itch for me to do chat, because as much as I want to do chat and I want to continue doing chat, it's only when I'm offered, and to be quite honest, that's not always going to happen. There's so many people that want to go on these chats with 6 or so people that if I'm lucky, it might be one a month from now on. So I might be knocking that on the head totally. It wouldn't be totally because of that. There are other things going on in the background, which I'm not prepared to talk about at this moment. That would be cruel to the other people. So I'm going to still support them people, but I'm more now concentrating on the side that has kept my blog going for all these numbers, and that is my retro with computers and so forth. And just to show that I'm not giving up on my films and all my stuff, because collection is a thing, we move to the media stuff, and I've got to go and get it because I've not been that prepared. Okay, so this is what's arrived this week. God, I'm a bit lazy. So let's move to the other cam. Here we go. This arrived this week, the Steelbook of Loki. Again, Marvel get a bashing, but I really liked the first season of Loki. The second season was not so great, but Disney are considering to doing physical media again, and if they do, they keep me happy. So the more sales they get of this and other types of Disney stuff, the more they're likely to bring out physical media. So good for them. I'm really looking forward to this. There's the back for anybody that wants to look. Quite nice. Then there's Prey. Remember, this is Disney again because Disney bought 20th Century Fox. This is the latest line in the Predator series, and a very, very good one. It's been out now a number of years, but they've brought out a 4K and Blu-ray release, which is nice to see both in the package. Lovely looking steelbook. Really looking forward to going back, because remember, I can look at this on streaming media, but streaming is compressed. Physical media is not, and that's where you have to sort of like look at this and go, why are you buying this stuff? Compression, picture quality, audio, need I say more? Then Rock God recommended a film called X, and there was another one I think called Pearl. Now a good friend of the channel that when I'm doing all the film stuff is Keith from Euphoria Pictures. And he told me where I could get this for very, very cheap. And it was literally like 12 euros or something. And it said it was Blu-ray, but they actually never did just a Blu-ray steelbook release. It was with 4K. So they misrepresented what it was. They said it was the Blu-ray edition, €12, whatever. When it comes through, it's 4K. So I've got the 4K edition of X. You'll see the credits for this particular horror film trailer shortly. And then, of course, the big one for this week for most people, if you look at any of these film unboxings and stuff, is Oppenheimer. A very big blockbuster, a Nolan film. Some people would call it a masterpiece. I can't do accents. But that was my little fun thing to Jamie, who I haven't spoken to in a long time. He's very missed on the chats. Miss him an awful lot. But Oppenheimer, we all know about. It's an IMAX film. The picture quality is brilliant. It's all about the atom bomb. And I saw it at the pictures and loved it. And I'm looking forward to watching it again in my own time, on my own screen, with my own Dolby Atmos speaker system. So we move to media playback, get rid of my notes, which I've been reading all of your comments from. And I'm going to turn the mic off now and let you watch a few trailers of the things that I've watched this week. One of them was at the pictures. Guess the one that was at the pictures of these ones that I'm about to play for you. So with that, I'm going to shut up and you can watch these trailers.
Farmer's daughter, take one.
I need to be famous, Wayne. All the best people are.
Ain't nobody else out there like you. You know why?
Why?
Because you got that X Factor. Our days of struggling may soon be over.
Hollywood, here we go.
So this is it. Our own studio backlog.
I'm looking for a place to stay.
Oh, yes, sir.
That's one ugly son of a bitch. And my wife, Pearl's next door. So I would appreciate a little discretion.
He don't know what we're doing, does he?
Oh, it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission.
Sure is hot out there. You must be awful thirsty.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to be in the movie.
Well, you can't. The story can't just change midway through.
If Daddy catches us, there's no telling what he might do.
My wife is not well. It happens after dark.
Maxine? That woman was in my bed touching me!
You don't want to leave, do you?
People's eyes are gonna pop out of their damn skulls when they see this. What?
Are you all right?
No.
Actually intend on experimenting a lot with the film's editing. It's classier that way.
Why do you want to hunt?
Because you all think that I can't. I saw a sign in the sky. I'm ready.
Muy nita.
There's something out there. I'm coming with you.
You can't.
I'm trying to protect you.
Protect me from what? It's time.
It knows how to hunt. I know how to survive. Whatever did this, I can kill it.
We imagine a future. And our imaginings horrify us. They won't fear it until they understand it. And they won't understand it until they've used it. Theory will take you only so far. I don't know if we can be trusted with such a weapon. But we have no choice. Is anyone ever going to tell the truth about what's happening here?
Now we have the trailers. Guess which one was the one I saw at the pictures? Pretty easy. Loved the film, to be quite honest. Rupert Everett stood out for me as Wellington. Don't go there for a history lesson. Go there to be entertained. Look at the epic battles. And there's humour in it as well. Probably too much. That's probably one thing I would say critiquing it. And that's the end, really. Just wanted to say that watching the film chats that I've been in, they're still absolutely fantastic value to watch. You know, if you ever want to ask a question about something and see what 6 very knowledgeable people can tell you about that film and whether it's worth it, they're the places to go. Standout ones are Playtendo Guy and Scott, the movie critic. If you want to know about physical media and what's inside them and whether they're worth buying, Euphoria Pictures. No, hands down is the one that I go to. And I must talk about Did You See That, because although he's moved away from chat, he's done a number of reviews recently, I was quite entertained with the fact that Love Actually is now in its 20th anniversary, and it's been back at the cinema. So it was nice to see a person like in Digizzy that review a film that's from 20 years ago, which means that it was made sort of like when he was a child. Because I'm older, I'm 50 something. So when I go to see the film, it's still in my memory. It's on telly, all of that sort of stuff. This is going to the cinema to see it, like I went to the cinema. I don't appreciate Love Actually that much anymore because it's been on it every Christmas. But then again, these are people that are watching it on telly, and it's not the same as when you go to the cinema. And he's a very big cinema follower. Big person who loves to go to the cinema to see things. So, and with that, I'll be waffling on forever. I could just keep talking for another load of hours. So I'm going to say salute to you now and goodbye, and hope that you're going to be around. I'm going to continue to put some stuff out this week if I can, and if I'm not too tired. I hope that there's been some entertaining bits in here. I hope I've answered all the questions. And with that, please support all of these people that I've mentioned, every single one of them. They all deserve something, even if it's just a sub. And with that, bye-bye. Salute.